Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I'd like to discuss the latest news that UK fruit exports to the EU have more than halved since Brexit. What's more surprising to me, quite frankly, is that we still have any exports left, and I'll explain why. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel. Actually, another quick thing. For those who follow SMR, the pro-EU anti-Brexit radio show, they've migrated to YouTube now. I will put a link to the channel in the description below if you're interested. So on to the topic at hand. And before I go over a few details, let's just look at the situation that's causing this and why I'm surprised it's even this good. First of all, so this is just the latest news about fruit exports halving to the EU. We've seen the same picture emerging for some time now. Go back a year, we had the news that UK food exports in general to the EU had fallen by 19% in the 15 months after Brexit. Now we've got the news that another year later, fruit exports specifically have fallen by over half. And what's incredible is that this isn't even comparing with 2019, the usual baseline for any sensible measure of Brexit effects, because that is the last year that we were in both the single market and COVID free. So that's what we should really be doing, comparing ourselves with 2019. Now, this is the over halving of exports compared with the year of COVID lockdowns. The year of COVID lockdowns, when large parts of the economies across the world, including in Europe, were shut down. It is provably the case that COVID lockdowns were better for business, if you're a fruit exporter, than Brexit. And this is part of the picture as to why our economy is still, amongst advanced nations, the one lagging behind that 2019 performance. We are the only advanced economy which has not recovered from COVID. This is because we mugged ourselves with the even more destructive Brexit. And to this sector of our economy at least, the data demonstrates it clearly. I want to point something else out as well. These values are given in pounds, not volumes. This isn't crates of apple, this is in pounds. Now, we've had this before on this channel. The ONS always make clear that their data does not take inflation into account unless specifically mentioned. So if you want a like-for-like comparison, run it through an inflation calculator. Now, this is labelled as HMRC data, but does not say that any baseline for the pound has been used either. Know what that means? It means they haven't taken inflation into account either. So as bad as these bars look here, they're actually worse. This is because the number of apples you can buy for £1 falls each year as inflation increases. And when inflation has been really high, as it has been, it massively reduces the number of apples you can get. So our fruit exports haven't just been reduced by 54% as indicated here. They've been absolutely beasted. And why is this? Well, because we left the single market and customs union, our exports are now subject to full customs and standards controls for that export market. This was always the case around the world. You're always subject to customs and standards controls to your export market. Of course you are. But now that applies to the EU market as well. We used to be inside it, now we're not. And as this is our closest market, it's also where, of course, the vast majority of our fruit exports are going to go. The fruit isn't worth very much if it's not fresh when it reaches the customer, but those standards and customs controls not only mean delays in getting the produce on the road, because of all the paperwork has to be filled in before you can even set off in the lorry, but you have got to make sure it's all cleared by the systems at Dover before you can even get to the port. If not, you're going to end up with a very long wait at the lorry park. And these delays mean the fruit is losing its freshness. I mean, look at the state of fruit in our own supermarkets, notably lasting much less time than used to be the case. And this isn't just for produce from abroad or because we're having to get it from further abroad than we used to. Even British produce isn't lasting as long. And it's because, although we haven't got standards and customs controls inside Britain, we do have a serious shortage of haulage capacity. So if we can't even supply ourselves in time for the goods to remain fresh for a while, when there are no internal trade barriers inside Britain, how much worse is it for the exports coming from the EU? Imports from our point of view, where there are the twin problems of both haulage and border controls, and of course those exports from Britain to the EU. And this is why I'm amazed we're still exporting really much fruit at all, apart from at the very high end, because shops around Europe, I mean, they've got their shelves full of fresh produce. They don't have to put up with produce that's about had it like we do. They don't have to just make do. I'm amazed that any British fruit is able to compete in the EU market at all. Also, just consider something else. So, that war in Ukraine that the Conservatives like to blame for everything. Well, certainly having a major agricultural nation in Europe be invaded and having its farmlands bombed to hell, that is absolutely going to create problems with the continental food supply chains. And indeed it has done. And yes, you may say, Ukraine mainly exports grains. Absolutely, it does indeed. But Ukraine still, before this started anyway, still exported more fruit than the UK. If we go back to that 2019, when everything was fine and dandy, no COVID, no war, no Brexit, Ukraine exported a lot more fruit than the UK. So the specifically fruit export market was worth more to Ukraine than the UK. So if Ukraine had its farming hit last year, the UK should have been able to increase its export, shouldn't it? More demand. But no, because if you cannot get the fruit to market while it's still fresh, not really of very much use. This is to say nothing of the problems with even raising production to meet demand. With the lack of seasonal farm workers available, farms have had to reduce production rather than increase it anyway. They haven't got the capacity to increase it. And all of this is Brexit. See, Brexiteers are currently sticking their fingers in their ear and saying, no, I don't see any link with Brexit here. I had this problem, or with this problem, or with this other problem. No, I can't see Brexit on this. This is all Brexit. See, there are some things that are partly Brexit. There are some things that Brexit just makes worse or just adds to. But it's hard to imagine anything more Brexit than the impact on British farming. Cut off from the continental labour market, which used to sustain it at harvest time, but without the army of British workers who were supposed to be queuing up for this same work. Hit with expensive customs and standards paperwork, which made their produce less competitive. Hit with delays in getting the produce shipped out of the country through those customs and standards controls, so reducing the chances it can arrive fresh at the other end. And all of this was self-inflicted. This is what Brexit has done. When a large exporter of fruit has been invaded by Russia, our exports of fruit still went down, and down by a lot. Utterly ridiculous. But there we are. Those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. Hope you found the video interesting. If you did, please click the like button if you'd like to support the channel further, the join button for memberships, and until next time, I'll see you later.